Ah, yes, now we are back. This is Comic Stripped, brought to you by the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is the show where we look at a book and we compare it to its direct adaptation, either a season of television or a movie. In this particular case, we are talking Teen Titans, The Judas Contract. And I am joined by a pair of Teen Titan enthusiasts. First, this was, I actually don't remember who pitched this, but this has been a wish list item for both of these people. So first, my partner on Long Road to Ruin, and really my long-running partner on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network in general, way from back in the day, Sean Comer. How do you do, sir?
Titans go!
How are you tonight, Sean?
Not bad at all, amigo. How you doing?
I'm very happy. I'm doing well,
Good.
Neupogen's a hell of a drug. Speaking of drugs, my other good friend here on the podcast, another Teen Titans enthusiast, somebody who actually was a founder of this particular brand of Radulich and Broadcasting podcast. It was kind of her idea for us to do comic book / movie / TV direct adaptations, and that's how we landed on Comic Stripped. Ladies and gentlemen, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
Doing well, but with all due respect, Mark, you were the one who pitched this. When you and I sat down and started to come up with ideas for Comic Stripped, you were the one who said you wanted definitely to do Judas Contract, and I said, okay, let's put it on the books.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay, that sounds like something I would do. I pitch a lot of things. It's hard to keep track.
Let's say I've pitched Batman versus the Ninja Turtles.
That's right. A very popular episode of this particular podcast, as a matter of fact. All right. So let's do just a quick round here. I will, let me just say, I never read the Teen Titans comic. I am familiar with them just, if you read comic books, if you watch this stuff, read this stuff for long enough, you will at least become ancillarily aware of the group, the Junior Justice League. So I know they exist. I've never, prior to any kind of podcasting, I never read their comics. This was not a favorite of mine amongst the DC brand. But I have watched a handful of episodes of Teen Titans Go, for what that's worth. And I took my kids to go see Teen Titans Go to the movies, and I don't know which one I laughed harder at, to the point where my kids thought I was going to keel over and die. That or the Lego Batman movie. Both tickled my funny bone quite hard. Go to you first, Alexis. When did you get into the Teen Titans?
I know a little bit about them in their early comic book days, but not a ton, because obviously when Teen Titans was first pushed, it was very much so Kitty's sidekick kind of comics. Obviously, it's like, hey, look, let's pair off, Robin and Aqualad and Wonder Girl. I didn't get into them more until we got the animated TV series that came out on Cartoon Network a while ago. Not Teen Titans Go. We will not speak of that abomination tonight. I'm making sure we draw a line in the sand.
Oh, the one I'm familiar with. Got it.
Not my fault that your children force you to watch garbage, Mark.
It's family bonding. It's what it is. Go on.
Yeah, sure. No, but yeah, I started to get into the animated series, which was kind of new for me because they were expanding on comic stories that I wasn't familiar with. Let me put it this way. I remember, not Facebook pages, this is a little bit before that, but just pages online where people were speculating if Slade was really Bruce Wayne in disguise because they were so unfamiliar with the character. I mean, that's where I kind of was, because, I didn't actually know much about Slade Wilson, a.k.a. Deathstroke, until much later in life. And I was like, okay, I need to travel back in time and slap myself for being such an idiot.
Okay. What about you, Sean? I know this was sort of a passion project for you that we do this. When did you start reading Teen Titans?
Yeah, so, I mean, my entry point was the animated series, the original one on Cartoon Network, but at the time, I wasn't a comic book reader. I knew there were these wonderful, wacky, fantastic things called comic books, and I knew that sometimes they compiled whole arcs into these magical codexes called trade paperbacks. But I didn't really start reading comics until 2012 when I picked up a copy of Green Lantern Rebirth, and it became and remains the touchstone to my entire love of this medium. But at the time, I was aware of a show on Cartoon Network that was called Teen Titans, and I saw Robin palling around with a bunch of other characters that I wasn't the least bit familiar with. And so, yeah, I kind of naively figured, oh, okay, this is this kind of like Alexis. This is some kind of cockamamie Kitty Justice League. This is it's Jim Henson's Justice Babies. And
by the way, that's a great name for a comic book, the cockamamie comic babies.
I'd read it.
Someone call Marvel quick.
So I didn't tune in for the longest time, but then I finally gave it a shot, and I kind of gradually became more and more immersed in and impressed with the whole thing. And as I would realize later, I think I want to say each of the seasons, if not most of them, actually kind of adapted a bigger arc from the comics. Usually one that's centered on one of the Titans. I think we got one that was a take on Terror of Trigon. We obviously got the Judas contract, but anyway, and then years later, I was already a big fan of Atop the Fourth Wall, Linkara's pretty much essential long-running comic review series on YouTube. And one month he did an entire month devoted to the Titans, and not having too many plans at the time to read them, I figured I would at least sit down, watch it, see what's what, see if maybe I could maybe fuck around and learn me a little something. And lo and behold, I did. I was blown away by the history that he laid out of this team, and realizing that they went back so much further than just a Cartoon Network show with a kickin' theme song. And I kind of put it in the back of my mind, and then years later, when I kind of picked comics back up again and started really reading a lot more broadly about a year ago, one of the ones that I had tucked in the back of my mind is, I would really like to pick up on the Titans. Specifically, I was aware enough of Marv Wolfman and George Perez that I wanted to check out their reinvention of the team, the new Teen Titans. And of course, that was the one that in the very first couple of issues introduced Raven, Cyborg, and Starfire. And as I picked that up, of course, I always had in the back of my mind, hey, I loved the version of the Judas contract that they told on the animated series. I really liked the movie. Let's give the book a try. And so this kind of became the perfect excuse for me to pick it up, kind of sock it away in my backlog, and dig it out when the time came. And Jesus, this book, this arc, and in fact the entire run on the new Teen Titans is a perfect touchstone, a perfect entry point to everything that really sets aside Wolfman and Perez as a couple of legitimate bona fide geniuses of the medium. So yeah, chance to review this as I'm still making my way through. I think I'm on volume 2 out of about 10 or 12 that's available chronicling this era. Sign me up.
And you're working your way through the Marv Wolfman stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get to the rest of the Titans some other time. In fact, we've got another Titans book that we're doing in the not too distant future, the Technus Imperative, which is credited to Phil Jimenez, I believe. I'm dying to get to that one too. But yeah,
Tell the people at HBO Max to get on the stick already and release the Titan series season 3.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
I've been meaning to check out a lot more of the more recent DC live action series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and some of the animated ones, but the live action ones in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a pretty good beat on which ones to go for and which ones to avoid. Titans is the one where I hear the most mixed reviews. Like everybody says it's either better than it has every right being, or no, it absolutely tries too hard to go too dark and edgy. Just set it aside, stick to the stuff you like.
Here's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to give you the very simple answer. I'm going to do it in the most internet way possible. Here's a list. Okay. Swamp Thing.
Yep.
Doom Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
And then Titans in that order. And I would even argue Doom Patrol Season 1, then Swamp Thing, then Doom Patrol Season 2, then Titans Season 1 and Season 2.
Okay.
And that's not counting the Harley Quinn animated one.
Now, is this because they're set in a similar continuity, or
No.
just are we talking a matter of quality?
Mark's preference.
Okay.
Based on quality. So I think I've reviewed almost all of those with Jesse at one point or another. I'm going to get you in on this conversation in a minute, Alexis, because I want to hear your thoughts here. I actually did want to talk like 10 words or less briefly about the Titans show. But yeah, we ran through both seasons 1 and season 2 of Titans, which first season dealt with Raven and Trigon and ended in kind of a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
The second season dealt with Deathstroke and his daughter, and in some way, and I vaguely remember this, Jericho. It also dealt with Jason Todd and some other stuff. And look, it's not a... Here's the thing. Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol Season 1 are by and large so much better.
You're talking about the live action series. I thought
Yeah.
for a second you were talking about the show. I was going to say, wait, Jason Todd, Deathstroke's daughter. Jericho. None of that was in the show.
Nope, live action, sir. The stuff that was all on DC Universe until HBO Max took it over.
Yeah, see, in the animated show, Jericho literally doesn't show up until the penultimate episode.
Nope, HBO Max, or formerly DC Universe. So long story short, the quality of Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol Season 1 are so good and so much better than... I mean, I think I've talked about this with Alexis before. My two favorite shows of 2019 were Doom Patrol Season 1 and Watchmen. I haven't shut up about Watchmen since I saw it. It's the only other show I talk about this much other than The Wire. Mark your center square, everybody. So, high praise coming from Mr. Radulich when I tell you, Doom Patrol Season 1's a must-watch, and Swamp Thing is awesome. And I was never a big Swamp Thing, fan, and we talked, and, we talked about the movies the week that Jesse and I reviewed the show as part of, a week-long Swamp Thing thing. Just sort of round this back to Titans, I'm actually going to take a breath here. Alexis, have you watched any of these yet? Have you had an opportunity to watch live-action Titans or Doom Patrol or Swamp Thing?
Well, I did watch the first season of Titans because you had me on the show for that. And I remember, I think there was a conflict and I couldn't do Titans Season 2, so I haven't watched it yet. And no, I haven't watched Doom Patrol. Again, perpetual to-do list. There will be a time, children, when we can finally sit down and say, what shall we watch? Because we don't actually have to review anything, and we can pick something that is not on the list because Mark Radulich told me to watch it.
I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, it is not this day.
I'm on the webpage now, and I'm trying to find if I missed one. Okay, so you just watched season 1 of the Titans because we reviewed it. Such as my memory of these things.
I will admit, though, it kills me because I do want to see Titans Season 2 because I hated the first season of Titans. And I remember telling you guys how much I hated it because I thought the writing was just ridiculously bad. And I hated how much they focused on certain characters with other ones just literally blending in the background. But everyone has told me, no, the second season is so much better. They finally got their heads out of their asses.
Yeah, to answer your question in a very simple way, Sean, Titan Season 1 is very uneven. It is all over the place, and it's not great. It's not the worst thing I've ever watched. It's watchable, but I mean, it's watchable in the sense of, like, think of the worst Arrowverse show, worst season of any Arrowverse show. It's about that level of writing. Season 2 hits a double, if not a triple. Doesn't quite hit a home run. It's still a little Arrowverse-y, but it is a vast improvement.
I don't view Arrowverse as necessarily an entirely bad thing, although I guess it kind of depends on which show we're talking about, because it's kind of the best DC has ever done at actually giving shows their own identities.
For sure.
Or really any adapted property, for that matter, rather than, as we said before, you like heist comedies? Here, have an Ant-Man. You like tech thrillers? Here, have an Iron Man. You like space operas? Guardians of the Galaxy, up in your face. DC's more like, you like a Batman? We have a nice Batman.
Yeah, it's very much like being interrogated by terrorists. Batman? Well, how about Batman? You want some Batman? Why are you playing Batman at all hours of the night at the highest volume possible? Like, stop playing Batman already.
I liken it more to that moment on from The Simpsons, where Marge is in Australia and tries to order tea, and the waiter keeps saying beer. T-E-A-B-E. Oh, was it coffee?
Yeah, she was coffee.
Yeah.
Ear.
Yeah.
There is an Andrew Dice Clay bit.
C-O-F-B-A-A.
There's an Andrew Dice Clay bit where he's trying to order a suit, and this is where I got. If anyone wants to know where half my ridiculous humor comes from, my phrase "Chinese Chinaman" directly stolen from an Andrew Dice Clay bit. So he goes into a tailor shop, and he's like, this Chinese Chinaman. He comes up to me, and I say to him, I want to buy a suit. This is my Andrew Dice Clay impression. You like it? I want to buy a suit. And he goes, what size? And I say 42 long. And he says, 40? No. I'm not going to do the whole bit. The idea is he doesn't understand him saying 42 long is not 4200 long. In any case, Alexis, going back to you. When did you first read the Judas contract, and what were your first thoughts about it?
First time I read it was a long time ago. I just reread it again today because I had forgotten so much of the smaller details. I remember just kind of being blown away by how much of a full-on sociopath Tara was. Again, my introduction to the character came from the animated series, where they portray a much, much different character. I mean, let's face it, children's animation show, they're never going to have a character be a full-blown sociopath. There's always going to be something.
Wouldn't she have been a psychopath? Because aren't sociopaths normally detached from their emotions?
So the mental health person says they are interchangeable words. Psychopath and sociopath,
okay.
Yeah, they can be antisocial, sociopath, psychopath, kind of all in the same family.
See, I always thought they were polar opposites.
Nope.
I always thought sociopath just because she was incapable of love. I mean, she multiple times in the books talks about how all she knows is hate. But that doesn't seem like a psychopath to me. But again, it's been a while since I've taken Psych 101, so we're not going to, we're not. Hey, who wants to hear the Radulich of Broadcasting crew discuss psychology? Yeah, let's not scare away our few we have left.
Can we go back to Captain America's shield first? I'm never going to let that go. All right, so you liked the Judas contract. It was, you've read the book. You had some good thoughts about it, yeah?
Very much so. not to mention, it did have some really good funny moments. I dropped the book laughing when you get the introduction of Nightwing, because I love that he comes down and he's in that freaking 1970s porn star costume of his. And I love it because he comes around and goes, it's like, prepare yourself, boys and girls, it's Nightwing. But as he comes around, he realizes that Joe Wilson, Jericho's put on his costume too, and it's literally, I am Nightwing. What the hell are you wearing?
Right. What is the circus getup you've got on?
I just love it. It's just like he had his moments completely ruined, and it kills me every time.
Fuck y'all, I like the disco collar.
Well, you can tell by the way Nightwing walks, he's a wanted man. There's no time to talk. So, real quick, and then Sean, you can back clean up here, and then we'll actually get into the comic. I actually never read the comic until I was prepping for this podcast. I've never read it before. My first exposure to the Judas Contract is the animated movie from the series of cartoons. And my one memory of the thing, I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it. I mean, the DC, as Alexis and I have talked about many times, the DC animated universe is, by and large, superior to anything they've put on the silver screen for the most part. I mean, these are some stellar cartoons. I think that's often said. DC, their cartoon movies and many of their cartoon shows far superior to anything Marvel's done. Marvel does the movies really well. In any case, there was a period there where I was watching every time one of these things aired. I paid the money to rent it or buy it if it was available, and I have a whole digital collection of these now. And I watched the Judas Contract when it first came out a couple of years ago. And I don't remember how old my daughter was at the time. I'd have to look at the year again, which I will in a little bit. But she caught at least part of it with me. So she about halfway through this, maybe she had just come home from something with her mother. And she sat on the couch with me, and she watched the rest of it. And it didn't seem to be anything about it that was particularly bad for a child of her age. So I let her sit and watch. Oh, how she boo-hooed cried when Tara died at the end. Spoilers. When Tara brings the house down upon herself, my daughter lost her shit. So if nothing else about that movie, without having rewatched it that I can remember, I remembered her reaction to it. Sean, when did you read the Judas Contract?
I would say about a few months ago.
For the first time, huh?
Yeah. Read it for the very first time just a couple of months ago. I was familiar enough from Linkara's brief rundown of it to know roughly what happened. And, of course, again, I knew that the animated series had adapted it. I had seen the movie, so there weren't too many surprises to be had. But there was certainly this innate curiosity to see the cradle where that source material was born, and it's one of the most satisfying comic experiences I've had so far.
Awesome. All right, so this synopsis comes from DCFandom.com. Yay, I found one. So I'm going to read through this so I make sure I don't skip any of the details. Bear with me, folks, and then we'll talk about it for a little bit, and then we'll jump into the movie and then compare them. The Judas Contract begins shortly after Dick Grayson and Wally West officially retire from active service. Though no longer calling himself Robin, Dick is intrinsically involved in Titan's activity. The group's most recent protege, Terra Markov, is not a full-fledged Titan, but has certainly won the heart and minds of Changeling, also known as Beast Boy. None of the Titans suspect that she has secretly been spying on them on behalf of her partner, the Terminator, who is also Deathstroke. Terra has been feeding Terminator important information regarding the Titans, including their secret identities. During a training exercise, the Titans begin to learn how mentally unstable Terra truly is. After enduring numerous playful barbs from Changeling, she unleashes a massive attack that nearly cripples him. The other Titans calm her down, but it is Raven who realizes there is something seriously dangerous about this Goyle. Once Terra acquires all of the information she needs, she informs the Terminator, who then systematically takes down each of the Titans. He first strikes at the apartment of penthouse shared by Donna Troy and Corey Anders. He incapacitates Corey with a high-yield letter bomb, like you do, and renders Donna unconscious with a gas mixture that he adds to her darkroom chemicals. He then takes out Cyborg by electrifying a chair in his apartment. The high voltage shorts out Vic's systems long enough for Deathstroke to collect him. He then tries to take down Dick Grayson at his apartment, but is surprised when the one non-powered Titan, because of course, manages to elude him. Frustrated, he goes to the Hamptons, like you do, to take down the last Titan, Changeling. Changeling licks a stack of envelopes, like George from Seinfeld, treated with a special poison that renders him unconscious. With all but one of the Titans, George's wife, I should say, captured, he brings them to the Rocky Mountain headquarters of his employers, the Hive. Deathstroke is satisfied that he has completed the contract left behind by his late son, Grant, but the Hive criticize him for failing to bring them Robin. Meanwhile, Dick Grayson, having discovered that all of his former teammates have been captured, returns to the Titans Tower. There he is greeted by Adeline Kane, the Terminator's ex-wife. She introduces him to her mute son, Joey. Adeline then tells Dick that Tara is a traitor to the team and has been secretly working with her husband since the moment the Titans first met her. Dick is incredulous at first, but slowly believes Adeline's story about after she provides him with a comprehensive history on Slade Wilson and the means by which he became the Terminator. Adeline's son Joey, a mutant at birth, possesses the power to possess other people, and he is eager to help Dick rescue the Titans. Realizing that he can never truly retire from superheroing, Dick adopts a new costume and an identity and calls himself Nightwing. Dun dun dun. While Joey is ready to follow him into battle as Jericho. Adeline gives the heroes the location of the Hive Command Center. Nightwing and Jericho go to the Hive base nestled in the Rocky Mountains. They sneak into the facility and discover that the Titans have been strapped to a giant machine, which is slowly siphoning away their life energy. Nightwing and Jericho fight through a horde of Hive shock troops, but are eventually captured. The Terminator is surprised to see his son with the Titans and tries to bargain with the Hive to let him go. The Hive refuse, however, and Jericho takes this opportunity to possess his own father. Using the Terminator's body and weaponry, he frees the other Titans and begins fighting the Hive. Tara is enraged and slightly stupid at Terminator and feels that his affection for Joey makes him weak. She loses complete control of her sanity, like you do, and yearns for nothing more than the death of everyone in the room. Changeling refuses to believe that Tara has gone bad, and is certain that the Terminator has brainwashed her. Tara's powers rage out of control until finally she causes a mountain of earth and debris to collapse down from the ceiling, killing herself in the process. The Titans bring Tara's body back to New York for burial. The funeral service is small, and only the Titans and the Outsiders are in attendance. The Titans let Tara's brother, Geoforce, believe that she died heroically while fighting the Hive. The Judas contract proper is issues 42, 43, 44, and annual number 3. The trade that I read incorporates a bit of a story about them fighting Brother Blood and what's the woman that's with him, Sean?
Oh God, I forget his name. Hang on, I've got the trade right in front of me. I would have to look to find it, but she's got a similarly alliterative name.
Yeah, it's Mother Mayhem.
That's
Mother
the one.
Mayhem. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's a whole first chapter of this where you see Tara and the Titans taking on Brother Blood and Mother May I, and
Mother May I.
and this is to sort of set up the bit where she's ingratiating herself among the Titans, but really she's recording them and spying on them. So I'll go to you first, Alexis. Let's talk about the Judas contract here. I thought it was a pretty good story. It's there's a couple of parts I feel like it drags in places, but overall I thought Marv Wolfman and company told a pretty. I like the idea that the only way to take down the Titans, I like the long con play of Deathstroke in this. That's the thing that I think rings out at me the most, more so than anything. The other thing is I really like Tara in this. She's probably my favorite character in the whole thing, even though she's the villain. And I like the fact that she's slightly unhinged and that she's very id. She keeps calling Deathstroke lover, and and she doesn't pick up at the end that he's been possessed, and so she goes nuts because she thinks that he's betrayed her and all of this. The artist in this, I'll pull his name in just a second.
George Perez.
Thank you, George Perez. I thought did an outstanding job of drawing her with crazy eyes without sending her into the Joker territory, or Harley Quinn. Like, you really do, Alexis, get a sense that just from the art that she is full goose bozo. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I like the first chapters and how well they establish Brother Blood and his cult. Although it does kind of kill me when they do this. They go on TV and they're like, and via satellite, we have Brother Blood. And he's in the full freaking helmet and everything. And everyone's like, yes, he seems like a wonderful person. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but they also established that that's one of the most ingenious and kind of nefarious aspects of his villainy, is the fact that, yeah, despite the fact that he looks utterly cheesing out Kali Ma ridiculous.
Damn it.
The fact that he's also able to be so effectively charismatic and persuasive. The look was certainly memorable. It was inventive, and they wrote him like the quintessential, pillar of a cult of personality.
It's very comic booky, because I'm with you. On the one hand, and I'm going to shoot it back to you in just a second, Alexis. But on the one hand, I think you're absolutely right. I think they went out of their way to make sure that people would have a reason to continue to follow him. You know, he fed the people, the trains ran on time, he was effective, people felt safe. But it's also contrastly very comic booky that they made him look like, a luchador. And it's one of those things where, as someone who reviews so much television, whenever they develop and produce these things, they always downplay the most comic booky elements. So everyone wears normal clothes, and and nobody wears outlandish costumes usually. And what costumes they do wear come from the X-Men school of clothing making. Everyone's in leather jumpsuits. So I kind of miss that, though, Sean. You know what I mean? I kind of miss the idea of everyone's in brightly colored, ridiculous Broadway outfits. No matter what they're doing.
It really reminds me of, Mark? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of something that... Oh, fuck. Who was it? There was a UFC legend who recently pointed out... I want to say, I think it might have been Chuck Liddell, now that I think about it, who pointed out that one of the biggest problems with the UFC right now is you can't tell anybody apart.
Yeah, I was gonna say everyone looks the same.
Yeah, everybody looks the same post-fight promo. There's nothing that sets them apart that really invests you in them. Like the everyman scrappiness of
Dennis Hallman's banana sack.
That too.
I'll never forget it, Sean. Never.
Neither will Dana White. Anderson Silva fighting like he's in the goddamn Matrix.
Yeah.
George St. Pierre making elite athletes look like absolute children with his wrestling, and yet being an absolute, utter, complete gentleman on the mic when all was said and done, and so on and so forth. Say what you will about how garish it might be, but I'll take that over the 90s when seemingly everybody was graduating with honors from the Rob Liefeld School of Anatomy.
Yes. Back to you, Alexis. I want to finish up your point there about the opening of this book and dealing with Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem, or whatever her name is.
Yeah. Going back to what you guys were talking about with Tara, though, one of the things I enjoy about this book, it sounds weird, but I like how well they intersperse Tara's story with going back and forth. It's not all saved up for a massive twist at the end, because there's a lot of story that we need to explore here. And I have a feeling that if they had done that, we were going to get a whole chapter right before the climax about what Tara had been up to and all that. The story really paces itself well, and that's kind of a tricky thing to do with this amount of flashbacks and cutting back and forth between the story arcs of Tara with the Titans and Tara with Deathstroke, because if you're not careful, you're going to end up pulling a Stephen King TV miniseries.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, and here I again must gush over Marv Wolfman a little bit. He and Perez both played the most deliciously dastardly long game from the second they conceived Terra. Because you see, at the time, the Titans' primary competitor was, of course, the X-Men. That was always the comparison. There was always the notion that Titans was going to be thought of as nothing more than the Kmart X-Men, because the X-Men were a bigger deal at the time, and the X-Men had just introduced Kitty Pryde. So Wolfman and Perez conceive of this 15-year-old girl named Terra, and what they did, without ever really lying, they strung the readership along and just played them like a chorus of Stradivariuses. Just letting them think that okay, she seems a little edgy, a little off-putting, a little standoffish. Yeah, here and there she'll lie, do dishonest things, but I mean she's gonna come through with a heart of gold at the end, right? 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 No, that was never the plan. Because the plan was always, from the very beginning, was for Terra to be evil. Was to always be playing the Titans. Always be running a game on them. So much so that when the big reveal came, readers were outraged.
Really?
How can you make her evil? Well, yeah, if you read the intro to the trade paperback, and here I quote, reader response ranged from hailing the story as a Titan's high point to, quote, how dare you make her evil, and then parenthetically, as if I had ever given the readers any reason to think she wasn't. To, really for funny. What you did to Terra Markov, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, Jesus. Are you serious?
Yeah, and they said that they did send that threat along to the police. But no, this was always the plan for her. Mm-hmm. She was created for this story. And again, they never lied. It's not like they ever played her up as being any. We're not talking about all of a sudden revealing that Captain America was a Hydra double agent all along here. And yeah, we're not going for the sudden big shocking twist. This is more like watching a horror movie or a suspense thriller where we're privy all along to what's happening and we're terrified for the innocent, unwitting protagonists or victims such as they were. And just waiting just to see how the trap plays out. It's utterly fucking brilliant how they set this up for around a year, for around a full year. I mean, we're not talking about two guys have been feuding for about 4 weeks. Hell in a Cell's right around the corner. Fuck it, throw them in the cell. No, we're talking more about WrestleMania 4 to WrestleMania 5 here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you, Sean.
It is that methodical. Oh,
yeah,
I love it.
And it's funny. And I want your thoughts on this, Alexis, and then resume your point from earlier. I wasn't totally sold on the early reveal at first. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of I warmed up to it because when it paid off, I was like, okay, no, I get the story they're telling, and you're absolutely right. I think once I got past the idea of this isn't going to be a sudden back half of the book reveal, mustache twirly. It was me, Austin. It was me all along. I was the author of All Your Pain, James. Suddenly Zemo. I got them all in. I think once I kind of turned the page on that and go, okay, well, don't tell me the story that I think you should write. Tell me the story that you think you should write, and I'll tell you if it's good or not. And the thing of it that I'm getting to is that slow burn, how much tension there is in the book, because she's betraying them through the entire length and breadth of this story. That at the end game is to get them caught by or killed, if not both, by Deathstroke. And so every interaction she has with him, you're like, oh, you're sleeping with the enemy, you're sleeping with the enemy. And so what Marv Wolfman does in a very superior way, probably the best I can think of in any comic I've read in the past couple of years, is build that level of tension and suspense, Alexis.
Definitely. Credit to the artwork as well. I love the intersperse of the recorded images. We learned that Tara's got, I can't remember if it was like a video camera contact lens or just a regular
contact lens.
Yeah, it was a contact lens, but I can't remember if it was recording video, because I know it was recording video in the movie, but here I can't tell if it's recording video or if it's just taking pictures. But either way, I love the little bits where she's looking around and then it has a black and white, slightly grainy image, and then you see the word click. And I just love that little reminder of she is recording all of this. All of this is being fed back to Deathstroke. Really nice touch on the artwork there.
Anything else? Because I got a question for Sean. If you don't have any further points on Tara at this juncture,
I think that was mostly it. I'll talk more about her character when we talk about the animated movie, because there's a couple of scenes in here that are translated almost identically to the animated movie. But I want to talk about those when we get to this next part here.
One of the things that happens early on, Sean, and I want to get your opinion on this because it kind of threw me for a loop. So they introduce this team, and 5 minutes into the book, Kid Flash, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kid Flash leaves the team. You seem to have some background information. Looks like you've done your homework and you're reading on some of the context of what was going on in this book. Do you have any insight as to what possessed them to have him lead the team? And the reason I'm asking that is it doesn't have any... It didn't seemingly have anything to do with the greater narrative. It doesn't set anything up. It doesn't in any way enhance or take away from the story. It's just, we're 5 minutes into this and one of the characters decides to fuck off and to do something else. Like, the stuff with Dick makes sense. The stuff with Dick is integral to the story of what they're trying to get across. I'm not entirely sure what possessed them to do the thing with Kid Flash. And I'm willing to learn.
You know what? This is about as far back as I think I can go with my knowledge. He wasn't the Flash yet, because Crisis on Infinite Earths had not happened. Of course, at the tail end of that, Barry Allen being dead in tribute, Wally decides he will no longer be Kid Flash. He is just the Flash, and he would be until Barry's resurrection. Which, oof. Be careful where you bring that one up. But to offer maybe a little bit of clarity, Wally kind of had 1 foot out the door from the start of Wolfman's run. He had been a member of the team. Raven was trying to coax him along with Dick back into the fold for her own reasons, but Wally was always reluctant because he wanted to go to college. He wanted to find a path to a normal life, one that was built around his powers. So him exiting was kind of no surprise. Again, there's a lot that happens between where I am in the trades and this particular story.
Has Wolfman given any insight as to what his thinking was?
Not a whole lot. I know that they kind of wanted to. I'm trying to tune out the Borks.
Sorry. Cleo keeps jumping on the top of the couch, and she won't come down, and Eddie then looks at me and barks like, Mom, get her to come down and play with me.
Gotcha.
Fair. If I had to guess, I guess maybe they wanted to just kind of write him out and do his own thing. I can tell you they were having a much trickier time with Robin, because whereas Kid Flash didn't have quite as much invested legacy that was tied strictly to one other mainline character, Robin was just kind of Batman's plucky appendage
which he just about says in the book.
Well, yeah. And he never really leaves the team entirely. He makes it known from the time he steps away that he's just taking a little bit of a sabbatical until he can figure out this new identity, get a bead on who he's going to be now that he's on his own. And that's why he leaves Donna in charge of the team. But yeah, they were. There's just not much else to say about it, except that at the time, Marv wanted to introduce someone new to take Kid Flash's place, and that was kind of where Jericho came from.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah, so your end game for the two was, okay, we want to split Dick away from Batman, so he can go off and do his own thing. In turn, Jason Todd gets introduced as Robin and Batman, and with Kid Flash no longer a member of the team, we'll instead just introduce Jericho, who's got a really ingenious kind of ready-made backstory. His overall characteristics, George Perez said were a really satisfying challenge for him to convey so much without having to kind of cop out to thought bubbles. Mm-hmm. And so he had to do everything with kind of finely chosen angles, facial tics, subtle shifts in expression, things like that. And I love that every time he possesses somebody, there's that little line, contact.
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I just adore that. But
so I'm going to quickly just share a couple of thoughts I had about what I didn't love about the book, because it's it's about 70-30 for me, 70 good, 30 bad. And Alexis, if there was anything that didn't work for you, I want to hear about it. And then Sean, but I know that that's his character, but God, did Changeling get on my nerves? He's a little too jokey for me. A little, we were talking.
I was having a little too rapey. You get the scene where the maid is at the mansion. She's like, "Do I have to go get him? I don't like it when he turns into a wolf and chases me. I don't like when he turns into a boa constrictor and hugs me." It's like, wow, okay.
Boy, it's a sign of the times when this was written, huh?
Yeah, it really was.
Because again, that's flirty behavior in that time, written by those people as they understood it. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just pointing out that it's like I have to tell my daughter, well, Tolkien's 1,000 years old, and it was a long time ago when he didn't put any women in his story. You'll have to forgive him, Lily. It was World War I, where you didn't have automatic weapons. Anyway, but the way that Changeling is written in this, it's so hard for me to call him Changeling. I want to call him Beast Boy. I don't particularly love his character. Alexis, you're dead on. Very rapey, very weird, very awkward, and I get why he was written that way. But this is one of those we've done a lot of stuff from this era, and I always kind of come back to the writing style in the 70s and 80s, a little long in the tooth, and it's just some of it has just not aged well, and not all of it. Look, I know you like this a lot, and so I'm not trying to take that away from you. I think for me, so I'll balance this out with a lot of Dick's dialogue is great. A lot of Starfire's dialogue is great. I kind of like Raven. I don't love the artwork on Raven. I kind of like the way she's presented in the animated whatever it is, because she actually then looks like a child, teenager.
Yeah, I think, unless I'm mistaken at this point, they were purposely drawing her increasingly...
Like the wicked stepmother?
Increasingly gaunt.
Yeah.
As a way of indicating and driving home that Trigon's hold over her, his possession, was increasing. It was growing stronger.
She looks a little golden age of Disney villainess for me, and I didn't love it. But
yeah, it's right up there with. And again, I always feel blasphemous saying this because I love these two artists. I feel the same way about the way Tim Sale draws the Joker and Scarecrow.
Oh, where their chin goes down to their knees?
It's not so much the chin. It's the fact that it's like the Joker has 3 or 4 foot fence posts for teeth.
Yeah, that you and I have actually talked about that in the past.
He's like Edge in clown makeup. And then I sometimes wonder if Tim Sale was slapped with some version of the same dare that Wally Wood was given about Power Girl's breasts, or the challenge that George was given with Starfire's hair to just increasingly just keep drawing something larger and larger and larger until somebody notices and tells him to pull back.
And then an entrepreneuring, enterprising editor says, "Why don't we make a pop-up book out of this? We'll open the book and Starfire's hair will come popping out. And another page, Power Woman's breasts, and just really make it a touch and feel situation with these comic books. Sell them to young boys. It'll be fantastic."
No, but I will grant you some of the complaints about the writing.
Oh my God, the stuff with the flashback stuff with Slade might have been better. It might have been interesting, but it goes on for so long, and the woman, the wife, says so much that I'm like, oh my God, I got to scan through this. I don't care anymore. Like, get to the point.
But I will give them this. Tonally, just speaking strictly in terms of the tone, just kind of the rhythm of the dialogue, I actually have no complaints. In fact, I was kind of shocked lately. I've read 3 revered quote unquote classic writers lately. I've read a lot of Chris Claremont. Read the first 25 issues of X-Men. I read a lot of Steve Ditko, and of course I've been reading a lot of Marv Wolfman. Wolfman and Claremont have a certain quality about their writing that Ditko rarely does, and that is, it rarely feels distractingly anachronistic in tone.
Okay.
Except for, I could think of maybe some issues with Cyborg, but that's about it. Otherwise, I mean, I have no issues with it. Yeah, you could say that some of it's a product of its time, but I would also say that a great deal of it, once you get past some really outdated, uncomfortable standards when it comes to certain issues, and I'll agree. The bit with Adeline gets, I think, necessarily a little bit long-winded, but long-winded nonetheless. But for the most part, I think it reads beautifully.
Alexis, let me go over to you, and then I think we're gonna kind of final words on this, and then we'll move on to the next thing, just as an issue of time. Was there anything that didn't work for you in the book, or you didn't love? Was there anything you were like, oh, this could have been better?
Well, going back to the whole Beast Boy thing, I think it's kind of important to note there's a couple of scenes from the book that are almost, I mentioned this earlier, that are almost shot for shot identical in the movie. One of them is a training sequence between Terra and Beast Boy. He turns into, I guess it's an anaconda or a boa constrictor. I don't know. It's a giant snake of some kind. He goes, "Oh, I'm gonna show you. Let's Gar give you a big bear hug." So round. And the thing is that when he does that in the movie, it's not a big deal because we've seen him very lightly flirting with Tara, but it hasn't been overt. When you see it in the book, it's after multiple accounts of basically somebody saying, "For the love of God, Beast Boy, no means no." I mean, it's a freaking page where he turns into a koala and jumps on his teacher's chest. I mean, yeah. So Beast Boy's flirting works, but only in much smaller doses. We do want to know that he cares for Tara, because it makes the shock of her betrayal to him much more devastating. but they really did overplay it, and I prefer how in the animated film they downplayed that considerably.
Yeah, I didn't love his reaction to, like, you know, they just made, I know these are supposed to be teenagers, but they made Changeling seem a bit dumb, you know, and I get that it's a surprise that she's turned on them and all of that, and, you know, and there's supposed to be like dramatic tension there, like, oh, how could you have betrayed us? But it's like, she does an entire bit, Alexis and then Sean, she does an entire bit about how evil she practically turns into a Disney villain by the end of this book. Sure, you know, like, she goes full Maleficent, turning into a dragon practically, and she's announcing how evil she is and how she hates the world and she loves Slade and she wants them all to die. And there's Changeling's reaction. I thought we were friends. And I'm almost, you know, if I could have thrown the book, I would have, but I was reading it on the internet. You know, it's just like, good, bad, and ugly. There's a lot of good here, and I don't want to make it seem like there isn't, like I didn't enjoy it again 70-30, but I can't help but point out that there were just, you know, I think some deficits in characterization and in some of the writing, Alexis. Real quick, Alexis, your reaction to that, Sean, and then we're gonna wrap up here and move on. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. It does get a little grating at the end. I mean, Tara turns on Slade because he's being controlled by Jericho, and he keeps saying, it's not me, I'm being controlled. Which was different for me because my introduction to Jericho, again, was the animated series where I was under the impression that he took control of your voice. Apparently here, he can only control your voice if you're knocked out when he takes control. When the person is awake, they can speak and go, I'm not doing this, something's controlling my body. But she's just basically screaming, I did it because I'm evil and I hate you. And it's kind of funny seeing all the other Titans just going, it's like, Tara's with us. We have to help Tara. Tara doesn't know what she was doing. It's like, wow. I'd say read between the lines, but this isn't reading between the lines. This is like spray painted on the wall.
Yeah. That was kind of my issue with it, too. It was like, what does she need to do? Punch a baby? Get a clue here.
Exactly. I mean, I understand the denial and the justification to oneself when a good friend betrays you, especially since we are given the impression that Tara's been undercover with the Titans for quite some time, and she's really built up a bond with them, or that's what they believe. I understand that they're going through all those stages of denial and bargaining, and they're trying to figure out, it's like, no, wait, maybe it's this. No, wait. And I get that, but it does come across way too, I don't want to say repetitive, but it does feel like the writing for Tara becomes very much so beating you over the head. It's like, we get it. She's evil. She's a psychopath, sociopath. I don't care what. Okay. She's, you know. Go ahead.
Before I give it to Sean, because I want to, I'm going to let Sean take us home here on this segment, and then we'll move on. Anything else, Alexis, you want to say? Any final words? Any last thoughts you want to get in here about the comic before we move on?
Let's see here. There is another bit here that I really do enjoy, and again, this is repeated very nicely in the animated film, is when we get the scenes of Dick Grayson doing his detective work, figuring out what happened to the Titans when they were attacked.
Oh, it's like the best part of the book.
Yeah, we see him analyze a crime scene, and then it doesn't show like a segue or anything. It just cuts immediately to the next panel showing what happened, and you get the impression that he's, you know, figuring out in his head exactly what happened, and I thought that was incredibly well done. So many people forget Dick Grayson, trained by Batman, world's greatest detective. He knows how to figure this stuff out, and I love that they included those bits. And furthermore, I love that they included them as he was figuring them out. So much more of a relief than, you know, again, this book really does pacing well, and I think if they had shown the Titans being attacked one by one and then Dick investigating, it probably would have gotten just a little bit more tedious.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's like in a film, you know, if you don't show a thing and then go back and show the same thing for the next 10 minutes, like, you know, you only need to go through it once, however style you want to go there. Sean, I'm going to let you go ahead and, you know, kind of answer these different details, say what you want to say, and then whatever else you want to talk about with the book, and then we'll move on.
I agree with the part about Dick Grayson's investigations being the best part of the book and one of the best parts of the full-length animated movie. It's outstanding. It lends credence to the fact that I do believe, and Mark, you're more of a comic scholar than I am, so maybe you'll remember this and I won't, or maybe you'll remember this better. But I seem to remember that Batman once posited that Dick would one day probably supersede him as the world's greatest detective. And it's certainly a display of that potential. He's not just an acrobatic kid anymore. He's a brilliant, intuitive man with deductive reasoning that's sharp as a rapier. It's outstanding development, and it's kind of a satisfying milestone of maturity for him. To take the lead like this.
You see that best represented actually the second part of Nightfall, after Azrael gives up the cowl because he's a nut job. And there's a bit where for a little while Dick Grayson is Batman, and then you have Tim Drake as Robin still. You really get to see a very thoughtful representation of Batman as perpetrated by Dick Grayson. It is very much They wrote him in that era of Nightfall as very much a detective's Batman, not a punchy ninja Batman.
By the way, Nightfall is another one that I've absolutely got to read at some point. And
pack a sack lunch, it goes on forever.
As for the part about Beast Boy, my opinions about Beast Boy and Tara have actually changed markedly. And as a matter of fact, it took rewatching the movie this afternoon to do it. But I'm going to save those remarks because they're a little bit weighty, quite personal, and while I don't aim to change anyone's mind about it necessarily, after all, you're going to read it the way you're going to read it, like what you like what you don't like. It's the way I choose to see it, whether Wolfman and Perez intended it or not.
All right, let's take a pause for the cause and pay a bill or two. I want to talk to you about Grammarly. Grammarly didn't exist when they wrote this comic, but it might have helped. It might have pushed Marv Wolfman in the pool and said, no, write it this way and not that way. No, Grammarly doesn't do that. But Grammarly does have AI-powered products that help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting the style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork to download Grammarly for free. Alexis Hejna, you wanted to talk about the Teen Titans cartoon and their, not the movie, the Teen Titans show cartoon, and its adaptation of the Judas contract. So real briefly, just kind of take us through that and your thoughts on it.
I guess it's just very interesting to read the Judas contract and then to watch this animated series that was made for kids, or even to do it vice versa, and see the crazy parallels of how they, build Tara up. Tara in the TV series is not a psycho-sociopath, whatever. She is a young girl. She is confused. She is terrified of her powers because she has lost control so many times. Slade essentially comes in and manipulates her into working with him. He convinces her that no one else will love her, that no one else will accept her. She's not necessarily an evil person. She's just very, very, very confused. We have the scene near the end of it. I'm trying to remember exactly what the episode's called, but it's the two-parter end of season 2. Tara is trying to break free of Slade's hold. You get I'm just going to say, rather terrifying moment where he explains that her costume has been ingrained into her skin and she cannot take it off. So he controls her in what she does. And he's trying to force her to kill Beast Boy. She's fighting against it. The other Titans are coming in. They're basically saying, you kill Beast Boy. We're going to, kill you. You get the music building up, you get everyone over talking, and the look on Tara's face as she's trying so hard to fight it. Again, this is a very, very different character with what Marv Wolfman and George Perez gave us. And I think it's so interesting to have such a different way of looking at the exact same character.
That is interesting. How many episodes did they take to do the story? Do you recall?
Oh, they were spread out. You have the first episode where she appears, and they want to put her on the team, but she clearly has trouble controlling her powers. We get this touching moment between her and Beast Boy where she loses control for a brief moment, and she tells Beast Boy, "Don't tell anyone that I can't control it." And he goes, it's fine, I'm not going to tell anyone." But then they have a fight with Slade, and he tries to be comforting to her and say, "You need a teacher. I can." The Kylo Ren to Rey mode's like, "You need a teacher. I can help you," kind of moment. But at the end, Robin goes to Tara and says, "Listen, we'd love to have you on the team. I know you have trouble controlling your power, so maybe we can help you." Tara assumes that Beast Boy sold her out, and she runs. And Robin's like, Beast Boy didn't say anything. I just figured it out. We get a few more episodes. Tara then comes back with her powers neatly and much more controlled, says she's ready to take him up on the offer and join the team. They again go after Slade. They're victorious, and they welcome Tara onto the team. Then we get the episode Betrayal, in which Slade's it's kind of like his robot ninjas. It's the equivalent of the Foot Clan from the Ninja Turtles. So they can, beat the crap out of them and kill them and blow them up, and they don't have to worry about ruining the TV Y7 rating. But Beast Boy and Tara has snuck off with Beast Boy out of town to a carnival. It's clear that she was trying to save him, and Slade shows up. Tara, and he tells Beast Boy, "Tara's working for me. She's been working for me this whole time. I got her powers better. I sent her back to the tower." And Tara confirms it. But again, we get this wonderful scene, but admittedly, I think they kind of took this from Paul Dini's Baby Doll episode of Batman the Animated Series, because it ends in a maze of mirrors with Tara looking at all her different reflections. And she's crying, and she's like, Slade told me I owed him, but I still want to be friends with you, Beast Boy. He feels betrayed, and he says, "No, we're done." Tara goes off with Slade. And then we get the two-parter finale where Tara swears her allegiance to Slade and says, "Yeah, I'll go destroy the Titans for you, and we'll take over the city."
Huh. Sean, what were your thoughts on the animated series interpretation of the Judas contract?
I do love it. I want to say that right off the bat. I love it for what it is, for the same reason that I love the entirety of Teen Titans. It's fantastically voiced. Well, it is monumentally well-paced. It is sanitized, yes, necessarily. Turner standards and practices were what they were. After all, there are very good reasons why we're calling him Slade and not Deathstroke. That being said, and again, I cannot fully lay this out until we get to talking about the movie, I can't say, hindsight being what it is, that I necessarily like what they did with Tara. It's a suitable enough adaptation because they really wanted to challenge themselves by bringing this, iconic, celebrated story to life. I get that. More power to them. Lord knows they weren't the first in the Dini Tim line to do this. Batman the Animated Series did it all the time, most notably with the Laughing Fish. But in this case, as we'll get to when it comes to the movie, they take so much away from Tara that fleetingly made her a compelling, terrifying character, and that actually said some really thought-provoking things, again, whether intentionally or not, about human relationships in general. But I just can't put all that out there until we've had the chance to compare all 3 points in the Trinity.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Time's a-wasting. So let's talk about the Teen Titans Judas Contract animated movie. It was directed by Sam Liu. It stars Stuart Allen, Tisa Farmiga, Brandon Suhu, J.T. Austin, Carrie Walgreen, Sean Marr, Christina Ricci, Miguel Ferrer, Greg Henry, and Meg Foster. It came out March 31st, 2017 at WonderCon. You ever work at WonderCon there, Alexis? Yes or no?
I wish I've worked WonderCon. Do you have any idea how expensive those tables are?
More than a halfpenny?
Much more than a halfpenny.
And then it came out proper April 4th, 2017. So 2017, so to answer my earlier query, Lily would have been 6. No wonder she broke into tears. Anyway, 45 years ago, the original Teen Titans of Dick Grayson as Robin, Speedy, Kid Flash, Speedy without the heroin. Hey, Sean? You with me? All right. There it is. I'll keep doing that joke till I gotta laugh. Beast Boy and Bumblebee, not the Transformer, rescue Princess Starfire of planet Tamaran from a captor sent by her evil, older, jealous sister Blackfire, who had staged a coup and forcibly taken the throne. As she is no longer able to return to her world, the Titans offer her a home on Earth as one of them. Dick fell in love, like you do, with Starfire at first sight, and more when she kissed him in order to learn English. By the way, is there ever a more horny teenage scene than I know Spanish?
Oh, fuck you! I love that scene.
Hey, listen, I can love it and I can love it and laugh at it at the same time. I am a complicated man who just loves a cold beer and is a woman. Anyway, in the present, Dick Grayson, now known as Nightwing, rejoins the Teen Titans to track down a terrorist cult leader led by Brother Blood, who plans on capturing the team to absorb each of their unique abilities with a machine that he has tested on Jericho. The latter is later shot in the head by Brother Blood's lover and assistant, Mother Mayhem. To speed up the progress with his development, Brother Blood hires mercenary Deathstroke to deliver the Teen Titans to him. Deathstroke, who survived his apparent death a few years ago, still seeks revenge on Damian Wayne, the new Robin, for replacing him as Ra's al Ghul's heir before betraying the League of Assassins. And this was all done in the movie Son of Batman, which I've seen, and it's fantastic. Deathstroke, Deathstroke monitors the Titans through his double agent, Terra, who joined the team a year ago, as shown in Justice League versus the Teen Titans, and whom he rescued after her parents turned their whole village against her and tortured her. When Damian grows suspicious of Terra's behavior and starts tracking her, he is confronted by Deathstroke. They fight until Terra subdues and captures Damian, thus revealing her affiliation to Deathstroke. Terra initially acts cold and distant towards the other Titans despite their welcoming attitude, but eventually warms up to them. During the night celebrating her 1-year anniversary with the Titans, she shares a tender moment with Beast Boy and kisses him. They gradually form a relationship together. While attending a convention to do a podcast with filmmaker Kevin Smith, Beast Boy is captured by Deathstroke. Blue Beetle is snatched from the soup kitchen where he works, and Starfire is kidnapped at the apartment she shares with Nightwing. Meanwhile, Terra captures Raven at the Titans' headquarters. Nightwing soon learns about the conspiracy before Deathstroke ambushes him. Outmatched, he manages to escape, faking his own death. Terra reveals herself as a double agent to the captured Titans when she and Deathstroke bring them to Brother Blood, who intends to become a god-like figure by using the machine to absorb the Titans' powers. However, since Deathstroke had failed to capture Nightwing, the machine cannot operate properly without a sixth Titan, and they cannot form Voltron without him. In response, he betrays Terra by allowing Brother Blood to apprehend her, thus completing the deal between them. With his followers and Deathstroke present, Brother Blood proceeds to commence draining the Titans of their powers until Nightwing surprisingly intervenes. After rescuing the Titans, Nightwing and Robin fight Deathstroke while the others battle Brother Blood, who has absorbed all of their powers. The Titans struggle against the villains until Terra intervenes, furiously attacking Deathstroke for his betrayal, while causing Brother Blood to get overpowered. The battle ends with Brother Blood being depowered by Raven, unleashing her inner fury as a demon, and then, while Deathstroke is buried underneath multiple rocks thrown by Terra. Brother Blood is then shot and killed by Mother Mayhem to prevent him from being captured by the Titans. Too ashamed to face her former allies after betraying their trust, Terra decides to bring down the entire area. Beast Boy attempts to assist Terra in escaping the crumbling fortress, but Terra pushes him back and is buried underneath multiple layers of rubble. Beast Boy digs her up, and she dies in his arms tonight. In the epilogue, Beast Boy goes on Kevin Smith's podcast and talks about the Titans with the host. He mentions that the team has a wonderful new member and that he will always miss Tara. That wonderful new member is Donna Troy.
Donna Troy.
In a post-credit scene, Jericho is shown to have survived the bullet Mother Mayhem shot at him earlier and will go on to beat The Rock and Steve Austin. Never mind. All right, Sean, you have a bunch of sentences ending in ellipses and no periods. You have a bunch of incomplete sentences, and you've been dying, chomping at the bit to share all this other information, so now is the time.
This is complicated, so I'm going to try to air this without thinking about it too hard. So apologies if things perhaps get a little bit flustered, repetitive, what have you. What this movie and also the animated series, in retrospect, really remind me of is the most recent, as in, I believe, more than 10 years ago now, adaptation of I Am Legend. Famously, that movie was a victim of focus groups. They originally went with the plot of the book, in which the protagonist is revealed to actually be seen as the feared monster of the apocalyptic vampires left behind, who theoretically only really want to live in peace, but instead they find themselves hunted by this one lone human survivor. From what I've always understood, this was changed in focus groups because audiences could just not cope with Will Smith being the bad guy, with this movie having a sad ending. And that brings us to what the animated series and the movie tragically get so wrong about Tara, despite everything else that they tend to get so right. Let's go back to the comics. Tara Markov is a monster. A psychotic, hate-driven, homicidal monster. A creature so driven on the Titan's destruction, such a slave to her own rage, that she actually legitimately unsettles and chills Deathstroke to the bone. We're talking about a globally renowned assassin for whom killing is his stock in trade. It is his business, and business has always been good. But she makes him nervous. She actually makes him more than a little bit afraid. She's that empty of empathy. In the animated series, which was the next adaptation, look, again, I understand. TV is what it is. Cartoon Network is what it is. You had to change what you had to change. You couldn't very well go and make a show that was toyetic in nature, largely aimed at kids, and let's face it, driven to produce merchandise. A 15-year-old Lolita who is sleeping with basically a silver fox assassin. It's just not going to fly. Not on a show where you can't even call him Deathstroke. So you changed it. You made her a manipulative, easily led child who has a stereotypical, dare I say, telegraphed moment of conscience at the end, and is seemingly redeemed with her dying act.
You think she's redeemed? She kind of just goes nuts and brings down the roof.
That's sort of what they're going for, but they really tried to drive it home even more in the movie, where indeed she does start off as a double agent from the very beginning. Credit to DC, they even brought back the teenage seductress element. Bold choice. Bold choice. But at the same time, it's also so much of her being played by Deathstroke, which is so very much less intriguing than the opposite. Her being the one force that has been able to put this elite killer among elite killers off of his game. She, of course, wavers right up to the end when it's Deathstroke who ultimately, legitimately betrays her, not just a perceived wacky misunderstanding. And once more, with her dying act, we have to make her redemptive. The fact is, the character of Tara, and I've never had a conversation with Marv Wolfman. I've never read any extensive interviews, so I don't know if this was what he was aiming for. Kind of said something about the consequences of abusive relationships with these two characters in particular. Well, correction. Sometimes it's between Tara and Deathstroke. Most of the time, it's actually between Beast Boy and Tara. You see, the whole way she plays Beast Boy, she strings him along, just like all the rest, in the comic anyway, never really sincerely feeling anything for him. She's a parasite. There's nothing symbiotic about their relationship. And in the end, she shows Beast Boy who she really is, and Beast Boy fails to believe her. Right up to the end, without Tara ever committing to a single change of heart. In fact, in the comic, remember, she dies in an absolute rage at Slade, not trying to save the Titans. She has just finally come unglued. The last hinge has fallen off the door. But Beast Boy, even after his abuser, his manipulator's death, is still sadly intent on defending her. And we can joke about it, we can make fun of it, but frankly, it strikes a chord with me because as someone who has been subjected to varying degrees of abuse in his life, it's something that is very, very real. And it's something that I actually found more relatable than I ever expected at the end of the book. I kind of understood after reading that why so many disabled readers were actually legitimately put off when DC Editorial and Gail Simone made the decision to take Batgirl out of the wheelchair. They felt like a character in which they saw themselves had all of a sudden had some of that comforting mirrored element stripped away. And it's hard not to feel like you've lost something. The movie, to its credit, actually deals with relationships in just ever so slightly more depth. And by that I'm referring to the depiction of Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem. You could easily argue that Brother Blood never really felt a thing for Mother Mayhem. He was an opportunist. She was a means to an end, the end being his ultimate conquering of the earth. And she never really saw it. He would have never committed the act of mercy that she did. She shoots him not out of anger, not out of any sense of malice or spite, but because she believed that he would only suffer if taken into custody. She believed that she was doing him a mercy that in all likelihood he would have never, ever at any point done for her. So it's why when it comes to Tara, as much as I love the movie and as much as I will always have a sentimental heart spot for the animated series, I also have to kind of mourn for what was stripped away, because it was a unique character depth that was so often unseen in so many other characters, and it was instead for a bit of a knee-jerk plot turn. I mean, remember, this is a teenage character that was created around the same time to sort of play off of what comic book fans had been conditioned by X-Men to expect by the introduction of Kitty Pryde. Something of a teenage avatar that younger readers could glom onto as being their self-insert into the world. And instead, Wolfman did an incredibly brave thing. He instead decided not to take the road most traveled. He decided not to make her redemptive. He decided instead to just make her something that we seem unable nowadays to do with villains. Just make her evil. Just make her...
No. Cruella teaches us no person is truly evil. Everyone's just misunderstood.
Yeah. And that's exactly the problem. Despite a society where we've seen so many examples over decades and decades and decades of human history of awful, destructive, monstrous, murderous human beings, tyrants, murderers, sociopaths, what have you, who were never, ever apologetic for what they did. We still insist on flinching away from depicting the notion that, yes, some people really are just vile. They're broken, and not in a sympathetic sense. So, I mean, yeah, crack what jokes you can about Beast Boy if you want to. I get it. I could certainly understand it. And at the time, yeah, I kind of might have as well. But hindsight is always 20/20. And knowing what I know now and experiencing what I've experienced in relationships, I can't do it. I can't help but feel for him because I've been there. I've had those moments of even anger and frustration at myself in hindsight where I marveled at why I invested so much energy over so many years in defending certain people, even when I was being told to my face that I was wrong. So, no, sorry. Garfield Logan gets a little bit of a pass from me.
Okay. Alexis.
Gonna have to disagree. I'm usually one of the people that says, yeah, let's have a villain who's evil for the sake of being evil. I have complained before on the show when we see a show or a movie try to give a villain a backstory that basically flies in the face of what we know. I mean, that's pretty much the reason why when Mark asked me to review the Maleficent movies, I said, not a chance in hell. But frankly, I think that Tara's backstory here actually contributes to a better story. We mentioned before that having the finale of the climax in the book where Tara is basically going, no, I'm evil, got really old really fast. I actually like the idea that she was more of a pawn of Deathstroke than anything else. I like the idea that maybe, yeah, I mean, the book doesn't go into more of her backstory. Maybe she was, threatened and abused as a kid. It is listed earlier on that Tara's background. She was the daughter, basically an illegitimate royal child who was sent away to avoid any kind of political discourse. It's entirely possible that, yeah, she grew up with, having problems because of her uncontrollable powers, but unlike her brothers, who also had powers, but obviously with the royal family had a bit more of an advantage in how they were able to, work with them and learn how to control them. Things may have been rougher for her. Maybe the villagers did find out and they did label her a witch. Maybe they did threaten to kill her. Personally, I think it's better this way. I'm not saying that the book is wrong to do something like that, but I think this makes for a much better story to have her just be a little bit less of a psychopath and more of just someone who never got a chance in life to really do the right thing. somebody who was just handed these cards and has had to make the most out of them. We all know someone who's like that. Someone who's not necessarily a bad person, but has just gotten so horribly screwed over in life that that's all they really know. And I think that Tara's a little bit more relatable like that. I don't really think she redeems herself in the end. I will admit, I do prefer this for how she goes after Slade. Because again, the whole Slade saying, no, I'm being controlled. No, this time, there's a legit reason why she wants to kill him. Because he sold her out. He said, okay, kill her. It's fine. I get my fee. We're good. This makes so much more sense, and I think really adds to her anger. Points to Christina Ricci, who, while I never thought was that good of a voice actor, just the screeching and the amount of pain you can hear in her voice when she's fighting Slade there is unbelievable. Props also to the late Miguel Ferreira. This was actually his last project. He died right before they announced that he was going to voice this. So, rest in peace, man. Lord knows you recovered from being the weather wizard in that horrible Justice League pilot.
Sean, you want to jump in again?
Yeah, and that is that if WandaVision taught us anything, it's that horrible acts committed even for somewhat sympathetic reasons are still genuinely horrible. So, I mean, and again, I can see where Alexis is coming from. I can see where anybody else would be, and I won't pretend that my frames of reference are necessarily relatable to everyone. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. I can only speak for me, but I don't know. I feel like this is one where seemingly more enlightened and nuanced thinking maybe doesn't necessarily do the changes any favors, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Here's where I'm going to be the arbitrator here. I'll be the judge on this one. I think you both. I'm going to be very brave here. I think you're both right. I think it's largely a matter of preference, because I'll be the first one to kind of point out where I think a story might have been stronger told X way versus Y way when given a sort of a 50-50 choice like this. In this, I don't know how much it matters, in only that it should only matter as a matter of preference. If you're like Sean and you like the way the comic handled it, that works better for you. Or rather, whichever way you like it. I think the Anakin Skywalker sort of slowly kind of, lured towards the dark side and turned on your friends. I think there's a great story to be told there, and I think when told well, there's some strong character work. But as we talked about before with the comic, I also really, only because, especially now, kind of going back to the idea of Robert Winfrey lamenting the loss of the truly evil villain. It's fun to go back and read books or see movies or shows from a time where we didn't shy away from villain's villainy. And so I think there's room in this universe for both, and I don't know if one's better than the other. I think they're about the same. Like I said, I think it's just a matter of where you are in your headspace and what your preferences are. Let's, if we don't have anything more specifically to say about the movie, I'll just kind of add my 50 words or less, my 2 cents in. What I remember of watching the movie, and I just watched it last night, I think if I had to, gun to my head, if I had to pick, I kind of preferred the movie. I think the movie is a tighter story. I also like the characters in this. I think you're right about Beast Boy. Beast Boy is a lot more tolerable, a lot less silly, a lot less ridiculous in this iteration. I think they all are. And that might be, a sign of the times and ages. This was done in 2017 as opposed to the late 80s. But
I do also like the the evolution of how he's trapped. In the comic book, he's mailing out fan letters, and the glue is drugged. And this one, he's at a Comic-Con, which, by the way, MegaCon's in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But they've established that Titan's Tower is close to Manhattan, so that must have been one hell of a flight.
That's a different universe where Tampa's in Long Island.
Yeah, sure, why not? Because I actually was like, wait, because I was like, wait, is that the con I'm going to? No, that's MegaCon. Different.
I'm not gonna lie. I actually thought that was one of the more ingenious updates they made to make it a little more timely. I legitimately like that.
I also like that they update the cast a little bit. It's cool seeing the new Blue Beetle. I love that they add in Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne's not one of my favorite characters per se, but added into the right elements, he is quite enjoyable. And he works well as the catalyst in this one because he's the one who's taking things so seriously that it makes sense that he would be the first to get caught.
Yeah,
and
he's...
I do love his scene. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I'm so sorry. I want to let you continue. I just wanted to add in his run of movies post the Son of Batman series of movies. He's so much less twattish. Like, he's positively fun. You know, he has a great arc in Teen Titans versus the Justice League. And here, he's actually, like, enjoyable and has a charm about him. I mean, I will never, ever stop laughing at, I think it's Batman Hush, which we need to talk about one of these days, Alexis. And Sean. We can't do the book because the book's already been done. I think, Sean, you were actually on that one. But
I was.
Yeah. But we do eventually, I do want to talk about the movie at some point. In any case, there's a great line in the movie where Damian starts lecturing Batman about, you know, the virtues of not banging Catwoman. And Batman just slams the door in his face. It's fucking great.
I thought Beetle was an outstanding stand-in for Cyborg. Because I know that in this continuity, Cyborg is, because reasons, a founding member of the Justice League. So, and I know they had to do a little bit of lineup shuffling, just, again, because of the continuity of the movies, and because there are certain plot elements that you just... You can't satisfactorily set them up in the span of a movie the same way that, you know, Marv and George did.
That's actually one of the things I liked about this movie was that we get to spend a little bit of time with these characters as people and not just punching machines. You know, we see, like, Blue Beetle at the soup kitchen or whatever, and it's a setup later for his capture. But they, as short as this movie is, and it's only 84 minutes, they give enough time to the characters so that when stuff happens to them, you actually care beyond you caring that stuff happened in a movie that you're enjoying. Like, I actually was, you know, to some degree, like, terrified for the well-being of these cartoon characters. Real quick, before you jump back in, Sean, Alexis, we both kind of ran over you there. Go ahead.
Oh, just what we were saying about Damian Wayne. You talked about his great line in Hush. I was just going to add, Damian Wayne will always have a place in my heart for that scene in Batman versus Ninja Turtles. I always wanted to press every button.
Go ahead, Sean.
That scene still makes me just die of laughter every single time. It is awesome.
I was going to say, what you said about getting to spend some time with the characters, that is really one of the most enjoyable hallmarks of Marv's run, is the fact that these are teenagers with superpowers, but at heart, they're still teenagers. They're still teenagers who are each separately dealing with their own issues, their own personal entanglements that are, you know, rightfully so, given their youth and their mindset and their worldview, equally as important as shutting down the Hive or putting Deathstroke back in his place. And so I think that's one of the nicest kind of adherences to the new Teen Titans, is just, you know, seeing them as people and not just kind of earthbound demigods like the Justice League.
I think the best superhero stories, and I would say this about animated, live-action, puppets, finger puppets, whatever you like. The best superhero stories are the ones that deal in people and relationships that just happen to have powers. I think the mistake that the DC on film movies tend to make by and large, and this is largely lying right squarely in Zack Snyder's lap. And might I also add, hashtag restore the Snyderverse, says Twitter.
Don't encourage them.
Release the air cut. I'm a child. Anyway, I'm sorry. I have a tick now.
Mark, how many times have we told you don't feed the Twitter?
After midnight, because then it spawns and it's terrible. And there's a Twitter running around with a mohawk and a Barbie car. Anyway,
You get better about yourself.
I do.
Stories the star of Gremlins is going to be at this upcoming convention I'm working.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I have a Long Road to Ruin, Long Road to Ruin Gremlins episode from back in the day that Jesse and I did that I'm just sitting on because I'm waiting for that Gremlins cartoon to get released from HBO Max. But I digress.
I'll post it when I work Crypticon.
Say what now?
I said send me the link to that. I'll post it when I work Crypticon.
The link to the Long Road to Ruin that I haven't reposted yet?
Yep.
Got it. All right. So just kind of make this point, and then we can start to wrap up here because we've been at this for a little while. I feel like the best superhero stories are told about people and relationships that happen to have powers, and maybe how those powers affect those relationships, not when the powers are the focus. And that, I feel like, is the biggest criticism I have of the DC universe on film, versus even just an apples-to-apples comparison, their animated stuff. Their animated stuff, even something as grim and gross and dark and somewhat horrifying as I think it was Darkseid War. That last one that came out that closed out the New 52 version of films, where everyone dies and it's horrifying.
Yikes!
Yeah, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Were you like me and went in the shower with your clothes on and said never be clean?
Not that bad, but I think I just kind of shut it off and just kind of stared at my laptop screen for about a solid 10 seconds.
Like, where did it all go wrong? Yeah, really. Listen, we're calling an end to this. We're not doing this anymore. We're going to blow it all up then. Let's fuck you people, is how the animators reacted. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I think they've handled relationships and true movie storytelling in the animated films versus the film version. And that's really kind of the last thing I have to say about the whole Judas contract thing. I think I'm with the people who say it's a seminal comic. I mean, it's the introduction of Nightwing, a lot of stuff, and we don't have time to get into it now, but I'm sure in a future in a future show of some sort or other, we can get into what this wrought for the Teen Titans until DC reset their universe for the umpteenth time. But I will say this. I think whatever interpretation of the Judas contract there is, the idea of we are sleeping with the enemy and that enemy turns you into your greatest monster and your greatest monster nearly takes you out is a strong story. We're quibbling about details here and there, but I think whether it's the comic or the movie or the television show, presumably, I think the bones of this thing, as created by Marv Wolfman, are strong, calcium-filled, thick bones. Mm-hmm. Alexis, I'm going to give you your chance to do the final word, and then Sean's going to take us home, Baby Doll. I called him Baby Doll this time.
And
only for you, sweetie.
What did he say?
He called me sweetie. We have a thing.
I just don't want you to remind people of Sucker Punch. That's all.
Your last few words on the subject matter, madam.
Obviously, I highly recommend both the book and the animated series and the animated movie. All three. Teen Titans fans, you're going to love all of them. If you're a Titans fan and you haven't read the book, go read it. For the love of all that is good, holy, and covered in chocolate and deep fried, go watch it, or go read it. Well, actually, you can watch it if you go to Hoopla Digital, and you can actually go look at it online if you don't have a library or a comic book shop in your near future, or if you just don't want to send money to Amazon. Because Lord knows they got enough.
No, Amazon is wonderful, and all their products are fantastic and fill up your life, and we'll talk about one of them in just a moment.
Again, I was trying to give you a segue. Doing that? Do I need to quit setting you up?
Yeah, I got it. It's cool. We can't segue into the Amazon plug before Sean has his words. But everything is a structure, madam. What podcast do you think you're on? Some other guy's thing that we talked about earlier?
Structure? What structure? There's structure here?
In a way, sort of. we point at it. Sean! Speaking of pointing.
Academic hard agree on all of the above. Look, for all of my criticisms, make no mistake, and I'm going to focus mostly on the movie. I love this movie. There's a lot of plot that necessarily has to be changed from the book, but again, it's for the sake of, number one, pacing, because trying to introduce certain elements would just come across as rush and haphazard and create all kinds of issues of flow throughout the entire 90 minutes or so. But also because, remember, this is taking place in the established continuity of the DC animated movies. And so really there's just certain things that you can't do. It's why, unfortunately, we also get world dominating Deathstroke as opposed to my favorite, only in it for the killing and the money. World's greatest assassin, Deathstroke. It's the reason he's one of my favorite DC villains, is he doesn't really care so much about absolute power. He just cares about wiping out of anyone who gets in the way of him fulfilling his next contract. And that's all there is to it. Just nice, simple, easy, breezy. But
squeezy?
Indeed. Indeed. Squeeze the lemons. Squeeze them good. But overall, for what it is, the movie is an outstanding update on the arc. I really have, for the most part, no issues even with a lot of the Titans lineup swaps that have to be made. For the most part, I kind of see Damian Wayne as more than a little bit superfluous, but credit where it's due, he maximizes his screen time. It's one of the rare times I haven't found him patently obnoxious, and it's one of the nicest things I can say about someone who ranks down there with Guy Gardner among my least favorite DC characters.
Oh, but that haircut and jacket. That jacket especially.
It's superbly voiced, well scripted. As Alexis herself astutely pointed out, there are several moments that might as well just jump right out off the panel. Again, my issues with Tara are my own. You may or may not share them. I can't say that what they did was bad, just that it's not what I would have preferred. And if you have the wherewithal, by all means, go out and check out the entirety of the Cartoon Network Teen Titans series. It is absolutely masterful. Again, more excellent adaptations of a lot of notable characters from the comics, from Gizmo, Mad Mod, and Simon, right up to Slade Wilson himself. And last but not least, the book. Alternately to checking it out on Hoopla, actually, I would rather recommend that you pick up the trade paperback. The one, hang on, I'm flipping to the copyright page here. Published in, looks to be, 2003, because it includes lovely forewords by both Wolfman and Perez. High quality printing. Wonderful colors. The interstitials between each, even the interstitial pages between each issue are utterly fantastic. Great for any DC fan, any comic reader. 100% recommended, all across the board.
All right, folks. This was fun. We had a fun time talking about Teen Titans, the Judas contract, and we loved it so much, we're going to do it again tomorrow. Talk about the Judas contract? No, we're done with that. I don't do repeats. Not if I can help it. But tomorrow, but it is Pride Month, all month long, wherever you can find it. And we're doing our part. DC Comics, speaking of which, has produced any number of Pride-oriented books, but the one we're going to talk about is their anthology series that focuses on a number of LGBTQ plus characters. DC Pride #1. And I'm going to have both of these people back, both Alexis Hejna. Now I know that one was your pitch because I remember it. Damn it, I'm giving you the credit you deserve, Alexis Hejna. You pitched that one. I remember.
I found the link. I put it on the network chat. I said we should totally review this.
Absolutely. And I know Sean, once he found out about it, was super duper excited. Cartwheels in a chat, if you can imagine. So we'll all get together again tomorrow and do this again and read our way through it. And then we'll see what life brings beyond that. That's it for plugs for me. Go check out W2M wherever you can find it. There's the website. We're on Spreaker, Good Pods, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. So wherever you're listening to this, if you'd like to listen to it elsewhere, we're there. We're everywhere. We're in your closet. We're underneath your beds, right next to Dick Cheney. That ain't cool. It's a clutch reference, Alexis. Just stay with me, man. I'm going to keep on going. You may not always understand it, but stay with me. All right.
With you till the end of the line, buddy.
Damn it. You got me there. All right. So that's it. That's my plugs. W2M Network, wherever you can find it. Check out our Pride review once it's posted tomorrow, Friday the 11th. And in the meantime, in between time, Alexis Hejna does trivia shows. She does podcasts with other people. She does jewelry making. She'll do your windows. She'll fold your laundry. Whatever you want. Just got to pay her. That's very important. Alexis Hejna, tell them where they can find you.
You don't want me to fold your laundry, okay? My husband and I actually still squabble over the proper way to fold socks.
You should TikTok that. Everything's on TikTok. That's what I've been told by the old women I work with.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When you fold socks, do you do one inside out and tuck it in, or do you just fold them neatly together and hope that they stay together in your drawer?
I'm lucky if I can find 2 matching socks, and I usually just shove everything into a drawer. I ain't got time for the pain or to bleed.
Okay. All right. Well, yes. Firstly, we are doing our next trivia contest. Stripped Up Trivia will be recording on June 19th. The theme is female superheroes in honor of Black Widow coming out. So excited for that. We've got a full deck of contestants raring to go, but we're getting ready, obviously, for July's as well. And the theme is going to be Warner Brothers Animation. That's in honor of the new Space Jam film coming out. And we're always looking for contestants for that. If you're interested in playing our game, hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know. And yes, moving on to the plug that actually pays my bills, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fandom meets fashion at the intersection of geek and chic. I mentioned it earlier that we are going to be making an appearance at KC Crypticon. This is our first convention in over a year. So excited to be going back to work. Going to be so much fun. I actually just got my table placement. I will be at table, I'm not joking, 7-Eleven. Yeah, seriously, that's my table number.
That's awesome.
After that, it's going to be back on the road. And yes, you heard me mention earlier that we're going to be heading down to Orlando for MegaCon. In August, I will actually get to see you, Mr. Radulich.
Yes, and my children. You know what's going to happen? My daughter is going to be like, I want this bracelet, and I want this thing, and I want that meant for girls, and I want that meant for girls. And my son, who doesn't want to be left out of anything, is going, me too. And I'm going to be like, but Jonas, you don't need a barrette in your short boy hair. And he was going to be like, I want whatever my sister has, motherfucker. And then,
Does your son actually say motherfucker?
No, he does when I do these impressions.
Let that boy live his best life.
It's more fun for me to imagine him as a short white Samuel L. Jackson.
Speaking of your daughter, I just finished the blueprints for a series of Demon Slayer-inspired pieces. And since Mark's daughter is the most adorable little Japanophile in training, I was hoping that I could get some feedback from her on these. So, Mark, please let me know what she says, because her final approval means a lot to me.
First thing tomorrow morning.
There you go. In the meantime, our stores are fully stocked on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon, and you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, intersection of geek and chic.
And Good Pods. Everything is on Good Pods. And TikTok is what the people tell me. Sean, I'm having a stroke over here, so please, for the love of God, twitch and shout, and let's go home.
For sure. My stream schedule is a little bit erratic these days. Normally, I'm usually on air sometime from about 8 p.m. onward, about Thursday through Sunday. This weekend, no dice. I've got some business in Kansas City that I've got to attend to on Saturday.
Are you meeting with the mob?
Not exactly. More like lunch with kiddo, hoodie shopping, dinner with friends, and grabbing some stuff out of a storage unit. But yeah, otherwise, the best way to catch updates for when I go live at twitch.tv/ComerCodex is just to follow me on Twitter at ComerCodex. And if you really happen to like food porn and workout pics, follow me on Instagram at ComerCodex. I have made this as easy as possible for all of you to remember. No excuses.
It's awesome. All right. This was fun. This was great. Can't wait to do it again. For Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, for Sean Comer, who twitches and shouts, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.